You've probably clicked on this video because you found, coupled with your iPhone 14 screen, you have found inside this little bag that has this tiny flex in it. And upon looking at the back of the display, you aren't quite sure where this goes. In this video, I'm going to show you how this flex cable is used by taking the display IC off an original display and transferring it to the flex and showing you where and how to place it on this display. Now, one of the first things that you'll want is a tool that you become familiar with. This is an extremely flexible scraping tool that I use for plenty of different repairs, but I found that I can use this in a specific way to make removing ICs from displays extremely easy. So we're going to go under my microscope and I'm going to show you how I get the display chip off using this tool. Here we've got the display IC. We've got the little dot here in the corner, and the really only awkward spot to kind of separate or remove the adhesive is right here in between this chip, just because the angle is awkward. On the side here, from here all the way around to the side, it's really easy to remove this border. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in with my hot air station at 300 degrees with a mid to low airflow. That should be plenty to not only remove this kind of silicon based underfill and also melt the solder on this display IC. Now, if my intention was to save this display for whatever reason, I would be isolating the flex. Let's say that this was an original display that I was transferring to and I wanted to remove the IC. There's a lot of other prep work that I would go into to isolate the flex, but given that this display is broken, I'm not going to isolate the flex in any way, as there's no need. You can see as I go around the border, I'm not actually scraping the flex cable. I'm basically kissing it with the tool. I could be scraping into it. I touched it a little bit right there, but what I'm really doing is just removing the bordering adhesive. I don't want it to be holding on to it too much. Got a little bit more of the flex there. And really what you're removing, if you do scrape it gently like that, is just a paint layer, a black paint layer that Apple puts on the flex. Next, we're going to gently try to start going under the IC with the tool. It's thin enough that I can get under there. We'll take our temperature up to about 330, keeping our airflow down there. I've got it set at 30 on my hot air station. And now I'm going to push under with the tool. I can just feel the solder letting go. Just like that. To make life easier for this next step when working on the IC, I'm going to take some 138 solder paste and I'm going to deposit it there on the IC. Take my soldering iron and we're going to mix the 138 with the factory solder. And while we do this, it'll kind of start to break up the underfill that's on here. Now we're going to come in with some wick and we're going to mop up all of that solder, getting us down to the IC. Now there's a bunch of different ways to do this. This is kind of just my preferred method. You might have a way that's faster, cleaner. If you do, leave it in the comments below. I'm going to come in and add some 138 again because I really want to freshen up any of the oxidized pads. Take my microfiber cloth, some isopropyl alcohol, and a brush, and we're going to remove the bulk of the flux using the cloth. I use the cloth for a couple of reasons. It prevents the brush from getting too dirty over time, sucks up the flux into the more disposable clean room wipe, and it also, I feel like it cleans a little bit better sometimes. If I need to be more abrasive with it, I'll just go straight with the brush onto the IC. Give it a good little scrub like you would be brushing your teeth. Alright, 138 again. Now I can really feel the underfill breaking up with the iron. I'm not like scraping at it, I'm just skating over the surface of the IC. I'm not trying to scrape the anything off the top layer, but I am trying to get down to that layer through the underfill. So you can kind of feel it as you cut through it. It kind of feels gritty as you work through it with the iron tip. Now you can use like a chisel blade with a hot air to do this as well. I find that this is sufficient for me, just using the iron the whole time. We'll freshen up these oxidized pads here. A little dry here in the corner, so we're going to add some flux. And we're getting down to that nice little green surface. Alright, we'll take our wick again. I'm ready to go in, and we're going to really soak up any of that solder that we put down, and this should finalize the removal of all the underfill. Come back with our cloth, alcohol, brush, and then we'll give it a really nice cleaning. And that looks really good. Alright, this next step is really straightforward. As you can see, we've got the dot in the corner here. On the back side, there's actually a nice little triangle there in between the four here on this corner. It also indicates that that's the right corner. And this flex cable has a gold dot in that corner, which tells us this is the orientation of it. And if you look really carefully at this flex cable, you will notice a couple things. First, all of the pads for the solder joints on the flex cable are pre-tinned, along with the flex cable being pre-balled. There is plenty of solder on there to accept the new IC. If you really wanted to, you could go through the process of wicking off these pads, reballing the IC, and then putting it on. Or we can go straight to soldering this on, because that has a decent amount of solder. This should be plenty to get this on to that flex. So let's go and do that. Okay, so I have taken the flex cable. I have secured it down with some Kapton tape here on the side. Take some flux. I'm just going to take my finger and smear it everywhere. We get a nice even coating. We'll take our display IC, line up the dot in the corner with the dot, just like so. And now we'll come in nice and slowly with our hot air, same temperature as where we left it, and same airflow. And slowly approach it and watch it settle into the flex. Pull the heat away, let it cool down. Alright, now let's go ahead and peel up Kapton tape, and let's zoom down in there on the flex cable and take a look at it from the side. There you can see that all of those solder joints have pancaked nicely against the IC, making good contact. You might be asking yourself, okay, now that I've done that, where does this go? Because when you look at the flex, it's not like it's very obvious where the solder joints are. And here's where it is on the 14. You peel back the flex, and there is a sticker right here that we're just going to peel up. I'll set that aside for later. And there are the joints. So we can peel off this flex just a little bit more like that. And something you'll notice with this flex cable is that it matches the flex here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and solder it on here, and I will show you the next steps. In order to do that, we're going to first pull off this little protector, and then we'll line it up just like that. Now let's go back under the microscope and solder on those joints. Here we've got the flex cable lined up nicely with those joints. I'm going to add some flux. Take my soldering iron, and we will tack each one of these individually. Now I'm going to take my tweezers. I'm just going to kind of compress the flex so that it gets a little closer. And that way I know I have a nice solid solder joint. We'll clean this up, put back the sticker, and we're basically done. Now that we've got that soldered on, I'm going to take a clean room wipe. We're going to add some isopropyl alcohol to it, and we're going to wipe away all of the flux, leaving us with a fresh flex cable. And we'll peel up that sticker, and we'll cover up the solder joints. Now the last thing is, due to the limited space, when we push this against the flex and this folds over, there's just enough room on the frame side of things to have this fit nice and snug. There is a piece of plastic right here that you can remove to create a little bit more room for the flex cable here when closing up this phone.